Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Psy-Frame deck profile. So I'm really excited for you guys because this deck is literally hand traps the deck because every single one of your Psy-Frame gear monsters is a hand trap, which makes for a lot of interaction against the opponent, which is really fun. You can even synchro summon during the opponent's turn with the field spell, which is just super cool. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name description every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to our Patreon, along with test hand. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Psy-Frame Driver. This card is extremely important because every one of our Psy-Frame gears requires this card to be summoned when they negate something. So this card is extremely important for the deck. As a 2 of, you can play 3 copies of it, but I find that 2 works best so you don't break with this card. We then play a single copy of Psy-Frame Multi-Threader. Multi-Threader is a good one of because it has the ability, this card's name becomes Psy-Frame Driver while it's in your hand or graveyard, and if a Psy-Frame card you control would be destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can discard this card for instead. And if a Psy-Frame Tuner is special summoned to your field while this card is in your graveyard except during the damage step, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field, and you can only use this effect of this card once per turn. This card is a really good one-of to help extend your plays, and it's just a really awesome card as a one-of for this deck. We then play 3 copies of Psy-Framegear Gamma. This card is really good because it stops your opponent from using monster effects, because it has the ability it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned by a card effect, which all of our Psy-Frame gears share that ability, that they must be special summoned by a card effect. And then when your opponent activates a monster effect while you control no monsters, quick effect, you can special summon both this card from your hand and 1 Psy-Frame Driver from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And if you do, negate the activation. If you do that, destroy that monster. And then during the end phase, banish this face-up card and the monster special summoned by this effect, which is really good to be able to just get this card off the field. Or to synchro summon with the field spell is just really helpful. And with cards like Lambda in the deck, you can basically bypass the ability of having to have no monsters on the field with your frame gears, which is really important for this deck. We then play 3 copies of Psy-Framegear Delta. Delta is a good 3 of as well because it has the ability it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned by a card effect and cannot be special summoned by other ways. And during either player's turn, when your opponent activates a spell card while you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand and a Psy-Framegear Driver or Psy-Frame Driver from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And if you do, negate the activation. If you do that, destroy that spell card. And then all of your gears share the ability that during the end phase, banish the face-up monsters special summoned by this card's effect, which again is not that big of a deal because with the field spell, you're going to be able to synchro summon these cards away to be able to get you a really powerful synchro monster like psy-framelord Omega. We then play 3 copies of Psy-Framegear Alpha. Alpha is a really good 3 of as well as a great card in this deck, because it has the ability that it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned by a card effect and cannot be special summoned by other ways. And when your opponent normal or special summons a monster while you control no monsters except during the damage step, you can special summon this and a Psy-Framegear Driver. And if you do, you get to add a Psy-Frame card from your deck to your hand, which is really good to grab any of the Psy-Frame cards that you need from the deck. We then play 2 copies of Beta. Beta is a good 2 of. I was playing 3 copies of this card, but I ended up cutting it down to 2 because it's a really good card, but I feel like 2 is plenty in this deck. It has the ability that when an opponent's monster declares an attack while you don't control a monster, you can special summon both this card and a Psy-Framegear or Psy-Frame Driver from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And if you do that, destroy the attacking monster and then end the battle phase, which is pretty good, but I feel like 2 copies is totally fine for this card to be able to just play in the deck to be able to stop your opponent's battle phases. We then play just a single copy of Epsilon. Epsilon is a good 1 of in the deck because it involves trap cards. It's basically the exact same thing as your Gamma, but it does trap cards instead of monster effects. But it's just a good 1 of in the deck to be able to stop the occasional impermanence or the occasional trap card that your opponent might activate against you. We then play 3 copies of StaringAtGames. StaringAtGames is a good card for this deck because it has the ability that when it's normal summon, you can target a level 2 or lower monster in the graveyard and special summon it in defense position, but its effects are negated. And if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, then you can special summon out a gadget token, Cyverse Light, level 2, 0 attack, 0 defense, and you can only use this effect of this card once per turn. But this card is a really good 3 of because it helps you go into Lambda and into your Cyverse link monsters that we play in the extra deck. We then play 3 copies of Psy-Reflector. Psy-Reflector is a good card because it helps us go in for link plays. It can actually help us go in for a single assault mode monster that we play in this deck. And this card has the ability, if this card is normal or special summon, you get to add an assault mode activate, or one card that specifically lists assault mode activate in its text from your deck to your hand, except another copy of itself. You can also reveal an assault mode activate in your hand and then target a monster in the graveyard that specifically lists assault mode activate in its text, except another copy of this card, and special summon it. And if you do, increase its level from 1 to 4. You can increase it 1, 2, 3, or 4 levels, all the way up to 4 levels. Usually we increase it by 3, because the card that we're going to be summoning and adding off this card's effect is our Assault Beast, which Assault Beast has the ability that you can discard this card to add an assault mode activate from your deck to your hand, which sets you up for a copy of your Psy-Reflector to be able to then summon out a crazy powerful boss monster for this deck, our Stardust Assault Mode. Stardust Dragon Assault Mode is really good in this deck because it's super easy to summon, especially with how easy it is to synchro summon in this deck. And it's just a really good walking negate that has the ability, this card cannot be normal summoned or set. This card cannot be special summoned except by its own effect or with Assault Mode activate. And you contribute this card to negate the activation of a spell trap or monster effect and destroy that card. And if this card, or if you negated an effect this way, you can special summon this card from the graveyard during the end phase. And when this card on the field is destroyed, then you can special summon out a Stardust Dragon from your graveyard, which is really good, especially with the amount of level 8 synchros we can go into to be able to go in for those really good synchro monsters. And this card is just really good overall in the deck because you're already going to summon this card out to maybe go for a Lambda. And then when you add that copy of Assault Beast and discard it, I found that I would just hold this card in my hand and I really couldn't do anything with it. So I threw in the copy of Stardust Dragon Assault Mode, and it's come in extremely handy to back up the psy-framelord Omega to be able to get a negate every single turn. We then play for the last 3 monsters. We're playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom because the gears weren't quite enough hand traps, but this card is really good because it stops the opponent from touching the deck, and so it's a really good 3-up hand trap in this particular deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Terraforming. Terraforming is really good in this deck because it gets us to our field spell, which is an extremely important card that we need to get to as quickly as possible. We then play 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. We play this so we can send to the graveyard Psy-Frame Overload, which this card is just really good in the deck to be able to send Psy-Frame Overload from our deck to the graveyard so we can get its effect off. We then play 3 copies of Emergency Teleport because Emergency Teleport is at 3, and every single one of our Psy-Frame monsters is psychic, so it's super easy to be able to use this card and to even get to Psy-Reflector because it is a psychic monster as well. So it's super easy to use this card to be able to get the exact monster on your side of the field that you need to go into link plays, to go into synchro plays, or to get your assault mode monsters out on your field. We then play 3 copies of Psy-Frame Circuit. Psy-Frame Circuit is insanely good and the literal most important card in this deck because it has the ability, besides Driver of course, but it has the ability that if a Psy-Frame monsters is special summoned to your side of the field, except during the damage step, you can immediately after this card resolves, synchro summon 1 synchro monster using only Psy-Frame monsters you control. And at the start of the damage step, if a Psy-Frame monster you control battles an opponent's monster, you can banish a Psy-Frame monster, and you can banish a Psy-Frame monster, and your battling monster gains attack equal to the discarded monster's attack until the end phase of the turn by discarding that card, which is extremely powerful to be able to use that effect to be able to gain the attack points of your monsters. But the really awesome effect is being able to synchro summon during your opponent's turn, which gets your monsters out of the way so you can go in for more cards like Psy-Framelord Omega, rip a card out of the opponent's hand, and it sets you up for an additional Psy-Frame play because it gets that monster off the field, while also being able to summon out cards like Stardust Dragon and then activating Assault Mode Activate to go into Stardust Dragon Assault Mode in this deck. So that's it for these spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Assault Mode Activate. You're going to be able to get to this card extremely quickly. It's kind of a brick. You don't want to add it to your hand because you want to add it to your hand off your Assault Beast. You don't want to draw into this card, but adding it off of Assault Beast is going to be the best way to get it because it has the ability that you treat a synchro monster to special summon an Assault Mode version of that monster from your deck in attack position. So I play this card as a 1-up to go into that copy of Stardust Dragon Assault Mode. We then play a single copy of Metaverse because we really want to get to the field spell as quickly as possible, so we play a single copy of Metaverse to be able to get that field spell on our field as quickly as possible. And then we play 3 copies of Psy-Frame Overload. Psy-Frame Overload is really good in the deck because it has the ability to once per turn banish a Psy-Frame monster from your hand or face from your side of the field, and then target 1 card on the field and banish it face down. But it has a really good effect that during either player's turn, except turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from the graveyard to add any Psy-Frame card from your deck to your hand, except another copy itself, essentially turning Foolish Burial Goods into a search for any card in the deck, which is absolutely insane with this card. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be laying a single copy of Psy-Framelord Omega because it's 1, but this card is really good to be able to rip a card out of the opponent's hand and get it off the field so you don't control a Psy-Frame monster, and it's just super, super good in this build. We then play 2 copies of Psy-Framelord Zeta. Zeta is a good 2 of in this deck. I don't feel like you need 3 copies of it. I honestly thought about cutting it down to 1, but this card is still a really good 2 of to me because it has the ability that once per turn during either player's turn, you can target a special summon monster your opponent controls in face-up attack position and banish both that monster and this card from your field, but return them during the next standby phase. And if this card is in your graveyard, then you can target one other Psy-Frame card in your grave and return this card to the extra deck, and if you do, add that target to your hand, which is a pretty good effect to be able to use this card to get a monster off the field while also being in the graveyard to return it to your hand, return to the extra deck, and return another Psy-Frame to your hand. We then play a single copy of Borreload Savage Dragon because we do play quite a few Link monsters in this deck. So this card is really good to synchro summon into once you have a Link monster in the graveyard to be able to have an additional walking negate. 1 copy of Stardust Dragon because Stardust Dragon helps us go into Stardust Assault mode, and it's a really cool synchro monster and super nostalgic to play in this deck. We then play a single copy of Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. Draco Berserker is really good in the deck as well because when your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can banish that monster, which is awesome for this card to be able to do. It's also a really big monster to be able to summon to your side of the field at 3k, and if this card attacks and destroys an opponent's effect monster and sends it to the graveyard, it gains attack equal to that monster had on the field, and also it can make it a second attack on a monster during the battle phase, which is really, really good. We then play a single copy of F.A. Dawn Dragster. Dawn Dragster is really good for spell and trap negates, in addition to our copies of our other Psy-Frame gears that already do that. So this card is just a really good card to summon to your side of the field to have an additional spell and trap negate. We then play a single copy of Access Code Talker to give us additional pops. You can play a copy of Boral Sword if you want to help you go in for OTKs, but this card is really good in the deck to be able to get you those additional pops. We then play a single copy of Unicorn to spin stuff, 1 copy of Needle Fiber because we do play so many different types of monsters, so many different types of tuners in this deck, so it's super easy to go into this card to help us climb into Unicorn and then finally into Access Code if we need to. We play 2 copies of Lambda. Lambda is extremely good because it makes it so that your Psy-Frame gears can activate while you control monsters, which is really good because this card has the ability to activate the effects of any of your Psy-Frame gear monsters in your hand even while you control monsters, and if a face-up psychic monster you control is banished face up while you control this monster, then you can activate this effect that during the end phase of this turn you get to add a Psy-Frame card from your deck to your hand, and you only affect this card once per turn. This card is really, really good, and you're usually wanting to make this card as quickly as possible in this deck. We then play a single copy of Link Kuriboh. Link Kuriboh is really good for all the level 1s that we play in this deck to be able to link into this card to protect us from being attacked. And then we play a single copy of Link Devotee and a single copy of Link Disciple, which these cards are just really good with the Psyverse Gadget to be able to go into these cards to then be able to climb into additional Link monsters while also getting their extremely powerful effects off in this deck. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really awesome deck to play. It's basically just hand traps the deck where you're playing all sorts of different hand traps to be able to go after the opponent for all those really, really crazy plays. It's super fun to be able to play, especially being able to synchro summon during your opponent's turn. And cards I did think about putting in here because it was Psychic was Thought Ruler Arch themed, because I thought that would be a really cool card to play in this deck because it is a Psychic boss monster and it's a level 8 synchro. So if you guys want to include that for a budget option for this deck, you definitely can. But anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can come part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.